Well, hi, and welcome to the PRCA's webinar on building a survival strategy for your agency. I'm just sharing the screen for everybody. Bear with me. So what we're hoping to do today is give you some practical insights and tips that you can take away and use after the call to ensure that you're surviving as best you can, and in fact, if not, exploiting the situation we find ourselves in. Panelists today, myself, I work as a consultant to agencies under the agency Doctor brand and co-wrote Grow, Build, Sell, Live, based in the UK but working across Europe. My co-author is joining us, Crispin. He's CEO of Onva Consulting and also works based in the UK but works internationally both in Europe and the US. Jurgen Gangoly has regional president in Europe at International Comms Consultants Association ICCO, and also CEO of the Skills Group in Austria. He's going to be giving you an idea of what it's been like for him during lockdown in the COVID-19 world. And lastly, Elise Mitchel unfortunately was going to join with us today to talk about leadership and looking to the future. Unfortunately, due to storms, the whole Nashville currently has no power. So she can't join us, but we are hoping to run a separate session with Elise on leadership for agencies. She's a three-time CEO and also a consultant, so I think that would be interesting when we get there. What are we going to be covering today? Well, I'm going to kick off with where we are and where we might be going. Broad brushstroke stuff. We've got an international audience, so welcome to everybody from around the world. Crispin is then going to look at growing your fees. We don't feel you have to be defensive at all points here. And then Jurgen is going to share his real life lessons as an agency head. So I'm sure many of those views will resonate with you that are running agencies at the moment. And then we're going to run into questions and answers. So the aim is to make sure you all have plenty of time to ask us questions before we finish today in just under an hour. Before we start, we've had a lot of conversations about where we are as agency leaders, and we really do feel that we can do more than survive in this market. It is unprecedented. I know it's a much overused adjective, but we can. But what you're going to have to do is analyse, make swift decisions based on evidence. You're going to have to execute these robustly. You're going to have to learn from those actions and then refine your model as you go. And then you're going to have to really clearly demonstrate the value you deliver clients' businesses, and Crispin particularly is going to talk about how you can do that. And as a result, you can do despite the unprecedented environment. I know it may not feel like it at the moment, but we are, confident that as a sector that is hugely flexible, hardworking, and resilient, that we can come out of this in hopefully the same, if not better shape than we went into it. So where were we and where might we be? Well, let's look at the operating environment we find ourselves in at the moment. And I think much of this is familiar to you, but I think it's worth recapping. We're all in the same storm, but we're in different boats. Let's be clear about this. Not all agencies are equally impacted. Certain sectors have been hit very hard. Hospitality, restaurants, travel, physical retail have really taken a hit. And I think we've seen reductions in fee as a result of that. Not everywhere, but certainly most countries. Other sectors seem to be more robust. Technology and pharma particularly have done well, and I've been talking to people in pharma who, have actually increased their fees since the lockdown. So I think it depends very much on which sector you're in. The services we're being asked to provide, we've seen an increase in crisis communications, internal comms and customer relations. Not surprised there. I guess the role of the influencers dropped, particularly those who have not handled the lockdown terribly well. Events obviously disappeared, although a number of agencies are getting very good at running online events. And media relations, mostly because I think the level of opportunity out there for media relations has dropped because COVID-19 coverage is dominating. Having said that, I work with a broadcast company, pure play broadcast company, who have been asked, very busy, trying to find good news stories for the UK and European media, or mostly UK, to go with the COVID-19 coverage which dominates. So there are opportunities out there, albeit smaller. I think it's fair to say that no government has a full plan. They're all planning as they go, and they're responding as best they can. And we have to accept that some were better prepared than others, but overall, I think they're all doing their level best to get through this. And our job really is to respond to what opportunities they provide us, because they're going to vary country to country. I think looking around the world, most economies and jobs are being propped up by large amounts of government funds. In the UK, the furloughing scheme, which is supporting jobs, has cost us £8 billion so far, so it's a significant amount of money. I think the big decision that we've all got to wait for is how those government funds that are, where they are available, are going to be withdrawn, whether they're going to be a cliff edge and they'll disappear at a certain date, or whether they'll be phased out for different sectors. I'm hoping myself that it'll be phased out simply because it makes life a whole lot easier if you can prepare for these things. Business confidence is dropping. There's no doubt. I haven't seen a survey yet that has said that people are more confident than they were before lockdown. And I think that makes perfect sense when you think we've got very little visibility of future revenues. And alongside that, how the operational constraints are going to look once we get back to the opportunity to get out of our homes and start working again. And if you wanted the best example, I think the airline industry is absolutely the shining example of how they've got no visibility of future revenues and they simply don't know how people never travel. So there's a good example there, if be an extreme one. So we're in a very fluid situation. We don't have very much control over the operating environment, and decisions are being made far above our pay grade, I guess, in terms of how we'll be able to run our businesses. Just a couple of practical points next. Keeping the boat afloat. One of the things that came out of the conference calls we had when we put this together was to just give everybody a quick checklist of things they should have done if they haven't already. I'm sure most of these are familiar, but if there's anything on here you haven't done, we'd recommend you get on top of it fairly quickly. Cash. Understanding how much cash you've got, where it's going during the month. So if you don't have a detailed week by week, month by month cash flow for the next 3 months, you need to stop and get one now, because that's going to make the difference between survival and not. People. They're at the heart of our businesses quite clearly. So you're going to need to lead, you're going to need to motivate. The two things that seem to come strongest out of this is clarity and consistency from you. If you're consistent on what you're saying and you're clear in how you say it and you almost over communicate, then that seems to be going down well. I think on the commercial side of things, you're going to have to look at who is critical and who may not be critical post-lockdown. So those of you who are looking at your costs, look at your people as a big part of that. Your biggest single cost, you need to deal with it. Reforecast the people accordingly in conjunction with your new fee forecast, which I'm sure are changing weekly, if not daily. If you're looking to do fee forecasts, I suggest you build a model that is appropriate for your agency, that takes into consideration the impact of COVID-19 on the customers of your clients, which sectors they're in, what their attitude towards comms, are they pro it culturally or is it a bit of a bolt-in? You can start to put together a little model that allow you to fee forecast a little bit more accurately than just putting a finger in the air. Although let's be blunt about it, in these times, a lot of it is going to be guesswork and gut feel. If you haven't already become an expert on what government support's available for you, whether you want to use it or not, it's important that you can understand that. You're going to get questions from your team and I'm sure your clients as well. Landlords, those of you who've got traditional leases or in contracts for offices, get alongside your landlord quickly. I've done half a dozen negotiations for clients so far, and the landlords on the whole have been very realistic. And those that haven't, well, frankly, they've got no alternative because at the moment there's nobody queuing up to take office space. So good or bad, it's very good for you to understand the reality of what's going on there. You need to look after yourself as well. I know lots of people are saying this to you, but I think agency heads on the whole are pretty resilient, but it's quite lonely, let's be blunt about it. So you need to look after yourself and work out what's availability out there. Jurgen is going to talk how they're dealing with this in Austria, but I would definitely recommend you talk to your peers, either through a trade association or informal groups you belong to. So you feel that you've got somebody who understands what you're doing. Particularly as most of the people in my family have no idea what PR does after 32 years. So I think it's helpful to talk to people who understand that are on your page. What does the new normal look like? Well, I feel mildly embarrassed suggesting that I have some sort of insight or crystal ball on this, but I think we can make some assumptions on what it might look like. It's not going to be impossible, but it's going to be harder than it was before. But I think those agencies that grab the opportunity are going to do well, and those that don't are going to shrink very quickly. Global shrinkage of economies, it's going to get harder. The PR market, consultancy market tends to follow the economic cycle, so there's going to be, it's going to be tougher out there, but we've all been through recessions. Most of us have been through recessions before, so it's not completely alien. I think clients are going to be nervous. We're going to see a growth in projects, the retainers. Looking at the international data, we were already at 50-50, about 48-52 in favour of retainers, but I think they'll go in favour of projects. And I think you might see fewer pitches. Those who are confident with their client relationship are going to stick tight, and those who aren't may well just not use a consultancy. I think you're going to have to focus on the outcomes of your PR activity. They're going to expect, clients are going to expect you to explain what the business benefits are for every dollar, euro, pound they're spending with you. For those of you who haven't got a good solid evaluation model in place, I think now's the time to do it. We've been discussing it for about 2 decades, and the AMEC integrated evaluation platform, which is entirely free, is a good place to start. You're going to see more competitors, I think, as a result of redundancies from agencies and the reduction in use of freelancers. That's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just a fact of life, I think. Increased discounting, let's be blunt about it. There's a chunk of our industry that's commercially illiterate, and they think that cutting their costs is the way to grow. So you're going to need to demonstrate your value to ensure that works for the sensible fee levels that you want to charge. There's going to be growing demand for creativity, though. I think you're going to have to make the budget work harder, and I think it's going to need you to really work out what's going to cut through both on social and traditional media and through events as we move into our new normal. In-house teams, I think it depends on the culture of your clients. They're either going to get smaller or disappear completely if those clients don't particularly believe that communications consultants have a value role to play, or they're going to get bigger with insourcing if they think comms is important, or they're going to get stronger if your client really values what you're doing. I think it really depends on the culture, but I think we can expect some changes in trends there. And I think if you're in the middle of an earnout, you're going to have, it's going to impact how that works, either because the the parent company who's buying you may be short of funds to do it, or you can't hit your targets. Either way, it's something that's going to need renegotiating, I would suggest. So that's really me, first 10 minutes, giving you an outline of where we are, what we're going to cover today, and the environment that we feel we're all operating in at the moment. But let's be blunt about it. There's a lot more unknowns than knowns. I'm now going to hand over to Crispin, who's going to run us through fees, growing fees in post-lockdown and in a world with COVID-19.
Thanks very much, Richard. Yeah, thanks very much, Richard. So, as Richard said, I think, well, as we say in our book, you've got an opportunity to build a great agency one choice at a time. So I think what I'm going to cover now is the choice about whether or not you are going to be proactive or reactive in terms of your sales approach. Those of you based in the UK will be very familiar with this gentleman. Those not, he's a guy called Captain Tom, and he's broken the world record for raising funds for the NHS. Age 99, he decided to do something inspirational, which has got a lot of other people in this country thinking very positively about the difference that they could make. So going into the next few slides, I think you've got a choice to make about whether or not you are going to approach the next 2 years in a really positive frame of mind, believing that you can emerge stronger from this particular crisis or not. One of the key things I'd encourage you to do, and pretty much all the slides I'm going on to talk about now apply both to you as an agency and also your clients. The world has changed, as Richard has said, and you've got a choice. You can either try and ride this out, or you can try and adapt so that you emerge stronger. And the reality is, smarter people than me have studied the way businesses have behaved in the last 3 or 4 recessions. There's a great article called Roaring Out of Recession, written by the Harvard Business Review, which identified 4 behaviors. The one that works least well is what they call a defensive strategy, which is trying to cut their way out of trouble. The one that works best is a progressive approach, which combines keeping the best team together and using that best team to adapt products and services to meet the new reality of the market. So the rest of this session that I'm going to go through is all about trying to make your clients adapt a progressive approach, and as you as an agency adopting a progressive approach too. So the best place to start is to work out why clients should give a damn that you exist. There's a guy called Simon Sinek. If you haven't seen his TED talk on purpose, it's well worth a watch. But But basically, he splits down what agencies and organizations tend to talk about into why, how, and what. Most agencies, most organizations focus on the what, explaining what they do. Very few explain the why. That represents a real opportunity for you as an agency to differentiate yourself from the competition and to win more than your share of what Richard accurately describes as a smaller marketplace. So I put some real quality time with your best people in refreshing your purpose. It'll give you the advantage of helping clients understand why you can make the difference that they're looking for. And just to give you a quick example from our book, we had this purpose statement, which, as you can see, describes one agency and why they exist. Now, why does that matter? Well, on Friday, I came across a brilliant organization for the first time called the Bear Kitchen. And their purpose is to change the world by changing the way we eat. Now, if you've got a purpose like that, and you're looking for help from PR agencies, you're probably going to want to talk to the agency with the purpose above, because you can see that it's perfectly aligned. So purpose is key. I think the other thing that's going to be important if you're going to take a positive approach to winning business now is recognize that the way you sell and who you sell to is probably going to change. Typically, agencies sell to the guys on the right, the user buyers, the head of comms, the head of PR. And in reality, what they care about is the difference that you'll make to their job. That's why agencies get away with talking about the what that they do. But right now, user buyers won't be the people that are making the decisions to choose you or any other agency. It's going to be the economic buyer, the person that cares about what you can do for their business. And they'll be scrutinizing every cost. So unless you can demonstrate that you can solve an immediate business pain for them, they really won't be interested. I spent a lot of time over the last 4 weeks talking to my agency clients and helping them to adapt their language to speak about business outcomes. Richard mentioned it, but the reality is CEOs are worried about how the hell they can kickstart their revenue. They're not really that interested in whether or not you'll get them brilliant media coverage. So really think about the pain that they are suffering and try and change your narrative so that it connects directly with removing those business pains for them. Now, I've got 4 slides here, and in the time that we have available, I'm not going to go through them all. But as I said before, you've got a choice. If you want to emerge stronger from the crisis, then don't wait for clients to come to you. You've got to be proactive. So the next 4 slides actually outline a method that I've developed over the last 5 weeks with agency clients of mine to get clients, prospects to buy now. The first thing you've got to do is to get them to recognize that you want to help them. Going to people with an aggressive sales approach that doesn't come with a helping mentality will probably get knocked back. Flicking right to the end, one of the techniques that we've used is to demonstrate that help. What we recommend you offer is a free brainstorm to clients to identify the options that are open to them right now, campaign options that are open to them right now to get their audiences to take the action your client or your prospect needs them to take. Now, the benefit of running a brainstorm is it gives that client or prospect the opportunity to experience what working with you is like and how your thinking can actually identify possibilities that they perhaps didn't think exist. Now, once you've run the brainstorm, you've got an opportunity to keep the connection you've made alive. Deliver a proposal to work up the best campaign idea that was surfaced during the brainstorm. I think the key thing at this point is to make it easy to buy. So you've got to really revisit and adapt the way that you would expect to price for things. And that doesn't mean price lower. It just means represent what you do in terms of the value you'll deliver rather than the activity that it will take. Second thing is I wouldn't recommend that you try and sell retainers to anyone right now, because the last thing that an economic buyer is going to want to do is make a long-term commitment to something when the future that they can see is probably limited to days or weeks. So just price according to a campaign that will deliver immediate value against the pain that they're currently suffering. But if they're going to want to continue a relationship with you, and they're going to believe that you can make the difference that they are seeking, they'll also want you to have a longer term perspective in the proposal that you put to them. So while the initial proposal is about immediate action and outcomes, it has to contain the seeds of how you will help them to emerge stronger by performing stronger in a world that lives alongside the COVID crisis. It's a very rapid run through of the things that I think will make a difference. All I can say to you is that if you take a proactive approach, amazing things can happen. One of my clients got a no from a prospect on a Friday that converted into a contract for a project on a Tuesday, simply because he adopted the approach in the 4 slides before this one. I've got another client who, through the clarity of their thinking, to support the UK arm of a global organization, they are now pitching to that global HQ to deliver strategic content for them around the world, simply because their proactive approach and the quality of their thinking is different and better to all the other agencies that particular organization uses in every country around the world. So I think you've got a great opportunity to emerge stronger from this crisis if you approach it with a positive mindset and you go about it in a way that meets the immediate pain. So that's all from me, and I'm going to hand over to Jurgen. If I stop sharing.
So, hello everybody. I'm Jurgen. I'm sitting in Austria near Vienna, and we are now heading into the 9th week of agency lockdown and of business lockdown in Austria. So we are 1 or 2 weeks ahead of what happened in the UK. And Richard has already introduced myself. Just 2 additional points which helped me over the last 9 weeks. I'm a little bit crisis-proof, as being 9 years a voluntary fireman and a fire department chief. So organizing emergencies is something I've been done in my former life quite a lot. And I'm used to be voluntarily in cages, as I'm a shark diver and an underwater photographer, and so I'm used with locked up facilities as well. It has helped me a little bit in thinking how to reorganize and how to organize our agency during the last weeks. Yeah? How did we respond to the lockdown? Yeah? Since we were working for some governmental agencies, we were luckily early enough in all the technical preparations for the home office, because we heard the rumors that the government is thinking about the lockdown even before the media reported about it. And so we could put security measures in place, have employee trainings and guidelines for those 50% of our employees who didn't use home office prior to the actual crisis. What we also did during the last weeks was really to increase the personal and emotional contact with our clients. So we used less emails, we used less short message services, but we really got more into personal calls and into video calls to get a feeling for the emotional environment our clients are in. Yeah? Because they are under pressure, as we are under pressure in the agency, and it's much easier to understand their living and working conditions when you have non-email contact. What we did as a courtesy from the very beginning, but what turned out to be driving the business as well, is that we offered the personal technical supports to our clients. How to set up their home offices, how to organize their home office together with their family, schooling, and so on. And we, at the very first days, we started to join the forces with our suppliers. So we made a special service with our internet service provider, with our IT service and database provider, and we offered help to our clients' home offices. We even installed cam systems there. We installed green screens in the background of the living rooms of our clients, and we even bought the last available webcams in Vienna to give them for free to our clients to be in contact with them. And then we communicated very quickly that we are doing all that, and we also teamed up with anchor persons of the Austrian TV to help our clients with Zoom and Skype interview trainings and so on, how to behave, how to talk to the cam at home and all that things. And this turned out as a positive revenue bringer in the agency. And as I myself in my team as agency manager, I really lost about 90% of the client business, which made some time free to take care for our employees and to work on a system to give our employees a perspective. And what I really learned and what's paying back now after 8 or 9 weeks really is be as generous to your employees in such a situation as you can be, and provide them with a safety net. We have our agency on what we call short work in Austria. So we have a parachute from the government who would pay up to 80% of our salary costs, but we try not to use that, and we said that we guarantee to all our employees 100% of the net income for the next 3 months at least. So this took out some pressures. What have I learned so far on different levels? The whole thing was a big shock for the international based here in Vienna. Many of them also responsible for the Eastern European market. And I'd like to present this quote of the former German Chancellor Helmut Schmidt, who once said, "The character proves itself in the crisis." And this turned out to be true when talking about companies, when talking about the culture of companies, but also when talking about the value system of individuals. And our learning, this might not be true for you or for all other agencies here in Austria even, but our learning was that the bigger the companies are, the bigger our clients were, the less they cared about the well-being of their suppliers. So we had very, very nice calls of small and medium-sized clients who called us, and some even said, normally you are charging per hour. If you want, we can make a fixed fee now every month so that you can survive and so on. While we had big international clients, I don't say any names, but stock listed clients who called us and say, "We love your services so much and thanks for helping us through the crisis, but please don't send us a bill before July or August again." So this was a big shock because this was very, very substantial income, and we are still in discussion with some of such clients. What we also learned is that a proper agency organization with Chinese wall, with industry clusters you are working for, with small and medium-sized enterprise experts, big shot experts and so on, turned not out to be so positive in this crisis, because we lost complete clusters, we lost complete departments, falling down from 120% turnover as planned to 10% or to 0%. So if you only work for certain kind of industries, for certain kind of branches, you might lose everything in a crisis, and we will change this for the future. Diversity rules, not only when it comes to how you set up your employee group, it also rules when it comes up to client structures. As mentioned already by Crispin, the external cost cutting will stay probably for a longer time. We need to prove the financial benefits of our work to our clients. That's clear. And what we are really as strategists are suffering of is that the long-term planning for PR is definitely gone for some time now. And the long-term budgets are gone. We need to plan and we need to eat in smaller pieces, and we need to present smaller pieces. When talking about our employees and what I've learned so far there, I would divide them into 3 thirds. The first third of our employees worked from one day to another fully in the home office, like in a normal agency life like a clockwork without any problems. No? The second third even showed up special talents we have never recognized during the normal office life, technical capabilities, communication capabilities, fun, and so on. And the third everybody should really focus on. I would say about a third of our employees really had problems with the new working environment. Not only technically, but also with the family situation, with children being at home, with living in a region of the country where you don't get high-speed internet at all. Yeah, and you can't have your kids, your husband, and yourself being online at the same time. And we had some who really got mental problems as well with being in a 50 square meter flat in Vienna with no balcony and not allowed to go out with two school children and so on. So this is something we faced, and I took really care of that, like an animator, like a facilitator. After these weekly calls, I really had one-to-one contacts with everybody. A tip I can give here is really take special care of the silent ones in your team. Yeah? Those who don't push up the hands during the video calls, those who stay more silent are the ones who normally need special assistance and have maybe problems at home. Entertainment and fun is crucial. I organized every week for the last 8 weeks a special video call just for fun with an external expert, even with a comedian, with a musician, and I really got positive feedback from the whole crew for doing that. I could only do that, of course, because I have lost a couple of clients and have time to do things like that right now. Yeah? And we strategically really started team building activities and used the time for educational activities. When it comes to sold services, very quickly, I mentioned already, we are now also a technical service provider, not only a communication service provider, but clients call us, which camera shall I buy, what is the best internet provider, can you set up your green screen room for me, and things like that. And all the distant training and consulting on such issues pay really well. Some of them even offer to pay in advance if we give them instant trainings for their management teams, how to give interviews, and also how to run internal activities via Zoom, via WebEx, etc. And I already mentioned that the private issues are really important, and maybe on contrary to that, what Crispin said before, or maybe in addition, it's not only the money value you bring to your clients who keeps up the contracts and what brings new business. I had some occasions where the private support offering to the people behind your client really ensured business and kept budgets. Yeah? Helping them getting a proper internet for home is saving your contract, even if you can't prove the financial benefits in the company at the same time. Yeah? So this helps a lot. Yeah. Well, collaboration with peers. Yeah, we did all that. What you probably all did. We had our daily video calls, weekly management calls, and so on. But what we did for the first time, and never happened in such an open manner before, is that we installed a bi-weekly video calls with the CEOs and the agency managers of all the big Austrian PR agencies. Yeah? We took those who are quality certified, those who are in peace times following the ethical codices of our industry, and we organized bi-weekly calls where we really openly talked all business issues. Yeah? We talked legal issues, we talked how to apply for the short work, how to get state subventions. People told us whom they had to fire and if we can help them and so on. And this is something which will run into a project I'm working since a couple of months on, which is called Agency Experts, where we offer more consulting and coaching services from agency CEO to agency CEO, from competitor to competitor, to help in special situations. And what really helped me personally, my personal mood, and as I heard also about 100 other people in Austria and some even calling in from all over the world, I organized 3 times a week for the last nine weeks a virtual pub. Yeah? I'm out of a pub owner's family here in Austria, and I organized a virtual pub and opened this virtual pub not only to the neighborhood, to my personal friends, but also to the long-term clients and business partners. And this was really bringing up more personal relationships than we had over the last years with some people. I saw faces more often I haven't seen for months and years. And here's a short screenshot of how this looked actually yesterday, where everybody had to wear a traditional clothes and to tell where he or she is coming from originally. And we had people from South Africa, from Mexico, from all parts of Austria. So this was really interesting. And we had the Austrian glass of wine, of course. Finally, how I am preparing for a post-lockdown world. I'm, as you see, used to the cages, but I like to go out as well. We are in our management team working on new working models for our employees now. We were quite conservative in the past. But we will allow home office to everybody in the future. We will push digitization further on, and we will also have to cope with decentralized PR. Just this week we organized our first video press conference where we delivered breakfast to the home addresses of the journalists, for example. So this was just some example of what we did. I'm here to answer the question at the end if you want to know more about the agency life here in Austria. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Jurgen. That's great. I know I'm looking at the time, and I just thought that we should probably cover off a very brief piece about leadership, because it's something that you're all having to do, and you know, it's a difficult job to do at the moment. It strikes me that providing a freedom in a framework is the answer. You need to create a framework within which your team can thrive and operate remotely, and within that they're going to need to feel they take ownership, and they have the necessary resources to make it fly. And really what we're trying to do is increase morale, culture and commercial success. I mean, it's a difficult one to balance, but I think you can only create a framework when you're not there every day. But one thing you certainly can do is communicate, and I think it's unlikely you can over-communicate in this environment. People quite like to hear that, as Jurgen was saying. They need to know what's going on from you. One thought while you're doing this is to met the difference between management and leadership. I thought Kobe summed it up beautifully, is management's getting the ladder, getting people climbing the ladder. Leadership is making sure it's against the right wall. Ultimately, just think about what you're doing in terms of switching between management and leadership, particularly if you're running a small team and you have to do both. And lastly, there's a great model from Cruz and Posner. It's been around for a bit, but it covers off the 5 things I think right now we need to do. Model the way. You need to show and demonstrate that you are behaving as you want others to behave. And that probably means not working all hours and sending emails in the middle of the night and demanding too many Zoom calls. Inspiring a shared vision. As Crispin said, if your purpose is clear and people know why you're here, then it makes it an awful lot easier to keep going. You need to keep reminding people of why we're doing this. Challenge the process. We're already doing that. People are working from home in short order. We've got to carry on doing that and how we do things and challenging that. Enabling others to act. That means providing them with a framework and giving them the remit to do it. And they're going to, you'll find a lot of staff will step up to the mark. And as Jurgen said, some won't, but a lot will. And you want to make sure you encourage those. And lastly, encouraging the heart. Everybody can get this downhearted in this situation. It's tough, particularly if you're in a small home without outside space, but you know, your job is to do those things. So balancing those 5 things seems to me to be an important role. And as I said earlier, we'll get Elise back on so you can have a proper detailed conversation about leadership in these times. So we'd like to go to questions and answers now. So while you're preparing those, Cora, you're going to field those, I believe. I did get one in from Tony Garner at Viva PR in the UK before we started. Given the reliance on Zoom meetings and home working, is this an opportunity to explore a new business model? I'll answer this. I've been doing this a lot recently. Yes, I would say that the way we're going to look at this is a hybrid model. So people are going to be working from home and in offices. We're going to see a staggering of working times. We're going to see smaller numbers of people in the office. We're going to see government expectations that are going to be tough to meet for agencies. I know in Italy, for example, you have to have one entrance and one exit, and they have to be separate, and you have to have outside space. I don't know how many agencies who are on this call could meet that criteria. So we're going to have to look at that. But certainly I think a hybrid model, and I think those of you that are looking to expand offices, I would hold off. and consider that. And maybe, you know, we're going to see people with no formal offices, but the opportunity to share offices with other agencies when required. Yes, you'd like a copy of slides, Harriet? Absolutely. If you email me, I will make sure that you get a copy of the slides, whoever wants them. And that's my email address on screen now. The other point is I noticed that Ananda in the UAA has already won a retainer today. So that's tremendous. So there are retainers out there, there's no doubt. And I think we can definitely exploit this if we've got a very clear proposition and it's directly linked to the business benefits. Anybody out there with some questions? Well, while they're coming in, I've got a couple of more that came in before. How do you maintain standards and how do you ensure teams are coping mentally? Crispin, wonder if you'd like to take that one.
Well, I think mental well-being is not to be underestimated. And I think the best thing to do is to make sure, as a couple of people have mentioned on this call, that you have frequency of contact. Frequency of contact is super important. I also highly recommend a neuroscience framework called SCARF, created by a guy called David Rock. If you Google it, you'll find it online. Basically, that identifies the 5 needs that our brains have to feel valued and productive. And as part of every leader's behavior, they should use that framework to structure the way that they communicate. Key things that been mentioned at different times on the webinar are things like giving people certainty, giving them autonomy, making it clear what they have control over, and also demonstrating that they are a valued part of the community. So have a look at SCARF. I recommend you use it. Okay.
I've got one here from somebody who's saying they've got one team member who would fall into Jurgen's third group, and I'm struggling to get her re-engaged or even to use MS Teams. Any advice? Jurgen, what would you say if they've got one team member in their third non-engaged group?
What we really changed over the last weeks in the agency, in our management meeting, we first discussed who are the people we are going to let first back to the office from home office. Yeah? Whom do we need most? Yeah? And of course, it was bookkeeping. Our bills have to go out. This is clear. But then we didn't decide on the client team issues anymore. We decided on who has the worst working conditions or living conditions at home. So we really talked to those people who we felt are part of the third group with having problems at home. And these are the first now who get offices in the agency back and who can work in the agency to get less stress. And I really had, out of 23 employees in Vienna, I had 5 who were really begging to allow them to go back to the agency and to write them letters that they are needed stuff, that they have to be in the office. And these are not normally the most important employees or those who are the big shots of working for the biggest clients. But we took the mental situation first, yeah, and we offered them some goodies, and we offered them some additional team leader attention with direct calls, private video chats, sending a bottle of gin and things like that.
Okay. I mean, I think absolutely. So you've got to treat each employee as an individual and respond to that. And as Jurgen said in his slides, you know, you've got to be a facilitator and an engager. I think if you only got one team member, then it's probably a one-on-one conversation that doesn't talk about why they're not using the equipment or engaging. It's how they're feeling, and starting from there, because you could probably take them on a journey from, if they feel you're empathetic and understand what they're feeling, that you can probably take them on the journey why they need to engage if they want to continue working, I mean, to be blunt. And you know, I think it's a step-by-step process, but it also feels to me that it's different for everybody. We're not all in the same boat, as I said at the beginning, I'm afraid. We've talked about, next one, we've talked about short-term trends and changes. What do we think the long-term impact of the crisis is likely to be on the PR industry? Jurgen, have you got any views on the long-term impact?
Well, yes, the long-term impact will be for the next year or so. We don't have to plan any events at all. No? This will harm some of the agencies who were more more event focused. Yeah? But we in Austria, telling you 2-3 weeks ahead from the measures, we already got the information from the government that there will be no events the whole summer. Yeah? And event is called more than 10 people meet in the same room. Yeah? And there will be no open air activities allowed for the rest of the summer, yeah? And probably to the end of the year. So this will change. Yeah? So Zoom, WebEx, and so on will be our friend also for the next months until we have a vaccination. As Crispin said, now what we are doing now, we are offering client meetings, we are offering brainstorm to help our clients to ramp up their business again. Yeah, This is not only ramping up the old business. What we are talking to the clients is what sort of new business we can generate, what sort of new services. Yeah? For example, we're working for the Vienna City Spa. The City Spa will be allowed to open, but with only 100 people, and normally there are 2,000 in. Yeah, so they cannot make any business by opening. Yeah, they have to do something else. They have to offer completely different services, online courses on health issues, swimming, and whatsoever. So we're working on that very much. But I didn't mention the positive thing. Yeah? We're a very fast-growing agency with having huge, like in London, huge costs for renting offices in Vienna, and we got rid of that problem now, because we found out now that our agency office is way big enough for future developments, because home office will not go away anymore, and we will have enough space in the offices, and this takes away lots of growth pressure from us, for example.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that hybrid model of having a smaller office to meet in, because human beings do need social contact. We don't want to lose that. I think the other things we're going to see is the market's fragmenting. I think it's going to be those that can deliver real value on the business side and consult are going to do well. I think those that get stuck in tactical implementation are going to suffer even quicker than they have done in the last 5 or 6 years. That would be my take. We've got a few more coming in. So Crispin, question for you, if you may. Is it worth considering buying in new business leads, cold call sales support right now?
I would only consider doing that if you believe that the provider of that service really understood your why and how. As that's unlikely that they're going to be good enough to do that and represent it in a way that you could, I would adopt a very simple proactive approach yourself, and I'd get your best people doing it. And that right now there is no substitute for getting a client on a Zoom call or otherwise to brainstorm out the possibilities that are open to them. It's a great way of showing your skill, your understanding of your market, and your facilitation capability in bringing really good ideas to the surface. So that's what I would recommend.
So you know, in summary, you know your proposition best, and you should be the one that's selling it, really, rather than relying on a third party. Absolutely. Here's another one, which I'll pick up. It's from Claire. How many small PR comms agencies are offering retained clients the option of project fees post-lockdown? I haven't heard of it specifically, but certainly a lot of clients have already said, we'll come back to you when we've worked. We're going to stop paying our fees now. We'll come back to you after lockdown, particularly in the hospitality area where I have an agency which I work with, which I think is where you are, Claire. Long and short of this, I think we're going to see more projects. I think if you adapt to delivering on projects, so you increase your retainer fees by 5 or 10% to ensure you get that money back, that you have projects with a clear measurable objective that you can evaluate against, so you can demonstrate success. And you could even put some performance-related payment models into there. I don't think projects are necessarily a bad thing. I don't think you're going to have the opportunity not to go to project-based. I think the majority of work will be project-based, at least for the next 2 years, while the economic shock of what's happened starts to settle down.
If I could jump in there, I've got an example of one of my agency clients. When I said earlier, people won't buy retainers right now, that doesn't mean to say that organizations won't continue with a retainer if they've got one. And that also doesn't mean to say you can't upsell on the back of a retainer if you've got one. Current client I've got is doing exactly that. Because they've been able to identify the value attaching to the retainer in very, very clear terms, each time they identify a new way of adding value, they are presenting that in an easy to way buy for their clients. So they've now got clients spending more simply because they're able to demonstrate the value of additional services. So don't give up on your retainer, but find ways to add value to it is what I'd recommend.
Yeah. Should we, right, thank you, Crispin. Next question, should we all be pivoting to more public sector work? Good question. I don't know, Jurgen's he's in two minds. What's your view?
I had some experience with that. So we have about 20 to 25% of our normal turnover is from working for governmental institutions and agencies. That's good to have such business in the crisis further on, but you don't earn special and extra money right now. For example, the governmental institutions, they are expecting us to work for free as well because we are in a crisis. And those who are paying are putting us under pressure with media reports. So, for example, we were sending one of my best employees to the Ministry for Transport Affairs in Austria. He is there since 8 weeks around the clock in the minister's office. And what did we get for it? We got the parliamentarian question session in the Austrian parliament about the fees. And we become famous to charge too cheap fees in the industry for giving a whole employee to the ministry for 8 weeks. This is what the colleagues in the industry said to me. The tabloid newspapers are reporting something different, of course. So it's really difficult. For example, we are working on the communications for this app, this surveillance app, which shall trace the infection rates in Austria. The public, the journalists and so on, they would expect you work for free for such things, although it's maybe the most complicated job you can have at the moment. So I wouldn't focus too much. What I said before is cluster your business into smaller pieces. So if you lose clients, don't let a single client become too big. This will harm your agency in crisis.
Yeah, I mean, one thought, thank you, Jurgen, I think you're right, that makes perfect sense going forward. I think also in the medium term, if you want to get into public sector work, you need to check that you've got the right resources and personality types or behavioural types, because it's a very different type of work. Don't underestimate the number of hoops you have to jump through to get on the tendering list, and then you have to tender for each contract in the UK on public sector. So it's not the answer to all your problems, but it definitely makes sense if you can do it and you feel like it's a good idea for your agency to have a stream of public sector fees coming in. Although I would suggest that they're not going to be as reliable as they used to be. We're going to borrow £1 trillion in the UK to get out of this. So I don't know how much money will be available in the public sector anyway going forward. Interesting one from Rod Cartwright. Has anybody seen examples of previous rivals collaborating in the client's interests? I can say quickly on that one, no, I haven't. But anybody else seen agencies collaborating?
What I have seen is clients being receptive to having new agencies operate alongside their existing ones. So it's not quite the same thing, but provided, I mean, so again, I've got a client of mine who approached a prospect who, when she got on the call, said, I'm not sure why I need you because I've already got 4 agencies. By the end of the call, he had persuaded her that he wasn't trying to unsettle existing relationships. He was simply trying to deliver value against a specific campaign that he would develop with them. And that approach was received very positively.
Right.
It didn't mean they had to unsettle anything, and it meant that they could get on and deliver something really constructive very quickly. As a result of that, he is now working alongside other agencies, and he's already been referred by that client to a colleague because of the proactive approach that he took.
Right. Yeah, and there's one example come through. Thank you, Crispin. I think that makes perfect sense. Proactivity again, focus and value. feedback here from Tony, we're now collaborating with other partners, a university and a membership organisation. I think everybody's probably looking beyond their sectors now to see how we can work together. John's asking how home working is going to be, now home working is going to be extremely important moving forward. How do you ensure the team working from different homes are delivering for clients? I'll pick that one up first if I may. I think it comes back to that leadership piece that I whistled through just before we finished our slides. I think you have to provide leadership that is clear on what's expected of people. They've got the framework in what's expected of them. And I think there have to be very clear outcomes you want them to deliver. You can't micromanage, nor should you, people's output, but I think you can give them outcomes and timeframes in terms of how to deliver that. And that's going to be the way forward. It's easier for you in many ways, less time consuming sometimes, to set outputs. You've got a working framework that they're expected to work within. And then those outcomes, set those outcomes, and they're the ones you want to deliver. So I think it's a movement to a more outcome-based management and leadership, and getting the team members to share how they work together. I mean, one of my clients has got kind of a brain share where they're getting once every 2 weeks, people are saying, oh, I fixed this problem by doing that. That's how I got around that. And they're kind of doing their hacks on how working from home works. And there's everything out there. There's a great website you can buy into, which is Procrastinators. Stops you procrastinating. And then basically you open a channel to a third party and you agree what you're going to do in the next hour, 50 minutes, and you sit down and work together. So if you're entirely on your own, there are lots of tools out there. So I think good leadership, outcome orientated, a framework to operate in, and lots of comms from you as a leader makes sense to me. There was another one. Yeah, sorry, please do.
I would like to add something here. What we also did really strategically is to release our employees from bureaucratic tasks. So for example, we changed our time system completely during the last 8 weeks. We said you don't have to log your internal hours anymore. You don't have to log your internal projects anymore. What we all had before, just work for the client, and log the client project so that we can send bills, but you don't have to fill in timesheets anymore for internal projects and things like that. And this was a big relief for our employees. They were so happy that they don't have to write down their internal jobs anymore, that we really had no problems with a single client.
I'd like to add one other thing, Richard, if I may, I think it's well worth, if you haven't already done this, getting behavioural profiles of each of your team members, that particularly now that they're working remotely. And one of the reasons for that is that in the changed environment that they're working in, quite a few behavioural profiles will be fine with that, but some people put into a changed situation need to be handheld through the first iteration of doing something. And unless you realize who you need to handhold through the process to build their confidence to operate while working at home, you'll find that they are unproductive, not because they are trying to be unproductive, but simply because they lack certainty about what's acceptable. So I definitely recommend you profile the whole of your team and map them on a behavioural wheel so you can see where and how you need to help people. And
I guess that's part of your recruitment process going forward as well.
Yeah.
How do people work in that hybrid model if that's what's going to be? Jurgen, one more thing.
And one more thing, what I did, I told you about the nice and funny things I organized once a week. One thing I did, I invited a mental coach who is working with top sports people to talk to us how he deals with difficult situations, with losses in competitions and so on. And it was somebody who was a former bike racer, and who got ill after a crash and couldn't bike race anymore. And he was telling our employees from his perspective how he changed his life. And so this helps very much to get new ideas.
I think so. That's a really nice idea, looking outside of our sector to get input as well. I'm going to wrap up now because we're coming up to 1 hour, but thank you, Jurgen and Crispin, for your feedback on those questions. We had 3 more which we'll respond to. How do you present yourself well on Zoom? That's probably a whole new training course. How do you build client relationships when you go and see them? And do you need an office to create a team culture? We'll look at those, but I think hopefully you've had a good range of information today, and there's some practical things that you can use starting this afternoon maybe, or even tomorrow. And I'd like to leave you with just the thoughts the head of European side on what is now Provoke, used to be the Homes report. Industry that survives will be stronger, will be better run, will be better at cash management, will be smarter, will be learning how to deliver to our clients better. We'll be leaner, there's going to be less of us, no doubt. We'll be quicker to move, although we've been very impressive, I think, in the last 8 to 10 weeks. And we're going to have to be more creative. So I think Maya's feedback there is absolutely bang on. All I would say is thank you so much for joining. I hope it's been useful. And very best of luck with all your businesses in the coming months. So thank you very much indeed. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much.
Cheerio.